Part 1. The Blueprint, Early Life and Education. Virgil Abloh was born on September 30th, 1980, in Rockford, Illinois, the son of Ghanaian immigrants. His mother was a seamstress, his father managed a paint company. There was no fashion capital here, no runways, no hype. Just a kid who liked skateboarding, drawing, and listening to music. But Virgil was always remixing the world around him. In high school, he designed his own t-shirts. But it wasn't fashion school he went to. He studied civil engineering at the University of Wisconsin. Then he got a master's in architecture from the Illinois Institute of Technology. Design wasn't just about clothes to him. It was about systems, buildings, culture. And soon he would build something far more ambitious than anyone expected. Part 2. The Kanye years. Apprenticeship in chaos. Before the fashion shows, before the sneakers that broke the internet, before the quotation marks and zip ties, Virgil Abloh was just a guy from Illinois trying to make something out of nothing. And like many visionaries of his generation, he collided with Kanye West. In 2009, Virgil and Kanye landed internships at Fendi in Rome. Let that sink in. Two black men, neither formally trained in fashion, walking into the headquarters of a century-old Italian luxury house. Not as guests, as interns, unpaid. They were mocked by fashion insiders, dismissed as outsiders who didn't belong. But instead of folding, they watched. They studied everything: textiles, tailoring, pricing, positioning. What others saw as a stunt, Virgil saw as a blueprint. After the internship, Virgil became Kanye's creative director, but not in the traditional sense. He wasn't making beats or rapping. He was orchestrating an entire visual universe. The cover of Watch the Throne? That was Virgil. The Yeezus tour stage design? Those massive mountainous sets that looked like sci-fi churches? Virgil again. He was helping Kanye push the boundaries of what a musician could be. Fashion, art, performance, architecture. It all blended into one. This was also the Tumblr era. Streetwear culture was exploding online. Virgil, with his background in architecture and engineering, started to apply that systems thinking to aesthetics. Not just what looked cool, but why something felt important in culture. He was dissecting the intersection of race, luxury, and identity, long before those words became hashtags. Then came the moment that would become legend. Paris Fashion Week 2009. A photo. 6 young black creatives, including Kanye and Virgil, standing outside a Comme des Garçons show in Paris. They weren't inside, they didn't have seats, they didn't have clout. But they looked like the future. That photo would later be dubbed the Black Renaissance. Virgil knew they weren't just attending Fashion Week, they were infiltrating it. Kanye once said, "Virgil is the best living designer in the world. Period." And maybe he was right. But even Virgil knew he couldn't stay in Kanye's shadow forever. This was his apprenticeship era, his Miyagi moment. He was learning how culture moved, so he could eventually move it himself. The Fendi internship didn't lead to a job offer. The Paris shows didn't welcome him inside, but they lit a fire. A fire that would lead to something called Pyrex Vision. And then something called Off-White. But first, Virgil had to decide. Was he going to follow trends or reshape the system completely? Pyrex Vision. The art of recontextualization. Experimental hip-hop instrumental with industrial sounds. In 2012, Virgil Abloh launched his first solo fashion project. It wasn't a brand. It was an experiment, a statement, a provocation. He called it Pyrex Vision. Here's what he did. He bought dead stock Ralph Lauren flannel shirts for about $40 a piece. Then screen printed the word Pyrex across the back, along with the number 23, a nod to Michael Jordan. Then he priced them at $550. And they sold out. To many, it felt like a scam. To others, it was art. It wasn't about tailoring. It wasn't about textiles. It was about context. Virgil wasn't trying to become the next Tom Ford. He was asking questions. What makes something valuable? Is it the fabric? The logo? The story behind it? Pyrex Vision was a masterclass in recontextualization. He took something cheap, added meaning, then reframed it as luxury. It was trolling. It was performance art. It was completely intentional. But Pyrex wasn't built to last. In fact, Virgil shut it down less than a year later. Why? Because in his own words,
I didn't want people to think I was just printing on flannel shirts.
Pyrex was never meant to be the destination. It was the spark, the proof of concept, that you could take the codes of street culture, hoodies, athletic shorts, basketball references,
and elevate them into something that sat next to Prada and Chanel. And not only would it be accepted, it would dominate.
Just 1 year later, in 2013, Virgil unveiled his next act, a full-blown fashion label, designed in Milan, stocked by the world's most exclusive boutiques. A label that would remix the DNA of Pyrex with a whole new level of refinement. He called it Off-White. Part 4. Off-White. Streetwear meets luxury. That was the tagline. That was the mission. That was the identity of Off-White. Not black, not white, but the gray space in between, where culture, class, and creativity collide. In 2013, Virgil launched Off-White in Milan, Italy, the heart of European luxury. Not in New York, not in Los Angeles. Milan. This wasn't streetwear from a bedroom. It was fashion, elevated, deliberate, and unapologetically disruptive. He blended industrial design with high fashion. Clothing looked like it came from a construction site or a runway, or both. Zip ties dangled from sneakers. Words were framed in quotation marks. Shoes weren't just shoes, they were footwear. What looked like minimalism was actually coded messaging. The diagonal stripes, inspired by airport construction signs. The bold arrows, a reinterpretation of signage systems and logistics, Virgil's architectural brain at work. He once said, "The quotation mark is my way of deflating the traditional seriousness of luxury." He wasn't mocking fashion, he was reprogramming it. Off-White's early collections weren't just clothes, they were declarations. He took the silhouette of a Carhartt jacket and turned it into a $2,000 statement piece. He printed shoelaces on laces and dared you to ask why. He blurred the lines between ready-to-wear and ready-to-comment. And fashion insiders noticed, quickly. By 2015, just 2 years after its founding, Off-White was shortlisted for the LVMH Prize, one of the highest honors in fashion. Let's pause on that. A black designer, from Illinois, with no formal fashion training, running a streetwear label, in Milan, shortlisted for an award usually reserved for brands like Jacquemus, Vetements, and Acne Studios. Virgil had done it. He'd made streetwear luxury, more than hype. But Off-White wasn't just hypebeast bait. It had range. In 2018, Virgil designed a tulle tennis outfit for Serena Williams to wear at the US Open, a defiant blend of femininity and athleticism. He wasn't just dressing models, he was dressing moments. Off-White exploded beyond clothing. He partnered with Nike, designed luggage with Rimowa, made furniture with IKEA, did capsule collections with MoMA. Off-White wasn't just a brand, it was a platform for fashion, furniture, design, architecture, and cultural commentary. Off-White stores opened in Tokyo, Paris, New York. Every drop sold out. Lines wrapped around the block. People weren't just buying clothes, they were buying into something. Virgil had made it cool to think, to dissect, to ask why quotation marks were on your hoodie. And in doing so, he proved something radical. Luxury isn't defined by who makes it, but by who it's for. Part 5. Nike, the 10 and the hype machine. In sneaker culture, there are moments that split history in two. The first, Air Jordan, the Yeezy drop. And then, the 10. In 2017, Nike gave Virgil Abloh something no one else had been offered. Creative license over 10 of its most iconic sneakers. Not a collab, not a colorway, a reimagination, deconstruction as design. The shoes didn't look finished. They looked like prototypes, like something stolen off a factory floor. Raw, dissected, gloriously imperfect. Virgil called the process surgical. He tore the sneakers apart, then rebuilt them, layer by layer, leaving every stitch and flaw visible. On each pair, he printed simple Helvetica labels, air, shoelaces, foam, and attached a bright red zip tie. To the untrained eye, it looked ridiculous. To the culture, it looked revolutionary. The 10 Air Jordan 1, Nike Air Presto, Nike Blazer Mid, Nike Air Max 90, Nike Air Vapor Max, Nike Air Force 1, Nike Zoom Fly, Nike Hyperdunk, Nike Air Max 97, Converse Chuck Taylor, each one more reimagined than the last. Virgil didn't just redesign sneakers. He turned them into statements. The Jordan 1 wasn't just a shoe. It was a cultural artifact. A black designer remixing a sneaker made famous by the most iconic black athlete in history. This was no longer about footwear. This was about power, ownership, legacy. When the 10 dropped, the culture exploded. People camped outside stores for days. Online raffles broke websites. Resale prices hit the stratosphere. $100 shoes flipping for $2,000 overnight. This wasn't hype. This was movement. It marked a shift. Streetwear was no longer influencing fashion. It was fashion. And Virgil, he was now its architect. Art, not product. Virgil saw sneakers the way an artist sees canvas. Every tag, every exposed seam, every phrase, intentional. He once said, "Design is the freshest lens to see the world through." Nike didn't just give him materials. They gave him institutional validation, and he gave them a marketing blueprint that would define the decade. Suddenly, everything had quotes. Everyone wanted a zip tie, and deconstruction became the new luxury. Beyond sneakers, the success of the 10 launched dozens of follow-ups. Serena's tennis outfit at the US Open, MoMA exclusive Air Force Ones, a women's line blending sport and high fashion. Each drop became a cultural event, each pair a collector's item, each moment a step toward Virgil's larger goal, democratizing design. To some, they were just shoes. To Virgil, they were symbols of how far a kid from Rockford could go, not by following fashion rules, but by rewriting them entirely. Part 6. Louis Vuitton, breaking the system from within. On March 25, 2018, the world of luxury fashion paused. A single headline broke through the noise. Virgil Abloh named artistic director of Louis Vuitton menswear. For the first time in the brand's 164-year history, a black designer had taken the reins of one of the most powerful fashion houses in the world. Not just a promotion, a revolution. Louis Vuitton wasn't just a brand. It was fashion's monarchy, a symbol of old-world craftsmanship, of prestige, of European tradition. Virgil? He came from none of that. He was a Ghanaian-American trained in architecture, raised in the Midwest, a product of streetwear and skate culture, a student of Kanye, not Central St. Martin's. His appointment wasn't symbolic. It was seismic. It signaled a tectonic shift, not just in fashion, but in who gets to define it. March 25th. From In the Largery Wear, interact with Louis Vuitton menswear. The Rainbow Runway, June 21st, 2018. Virgil's debut collection for Louis Vuitton. The setting? Palais Royal, Paris. The runway, a gradient rainbow stretching across the courtyard. The symbolism was unmissable. Color, possibility, visibility. The models? Many were young, black, and new to the fashion world. Playboy Cardi walked. Kid Cudi walked. Steve Lacy walked. It wasn't just a runway. It was a reclamation of style, of space, of identity. And then, at the very end of the show, he saw him. Kanye, his mentor, his brother, the man who believed in him before the world did. They embraced. And Virgil, known for his calm demeanor, cried. Right there, in front of the fashion elite, the cameras, the critics. It wasn't just a hug. It was the emotional release of 1,000 closed doors, now flung open. It was a moment that said, "We made it." Virgil's vision for Louis Vuitton wasn't just to make clothes. It was to remake the narrative of what luxury could be, and who it could speak to. He fused tailoring with hoodies. He mixed Western boots with utilitarian vests. He printed quotes on bags. He turned Vuitton's monogram into cultural armor.
He once said, "I want to design Louis Vuitton as if it were a black brand. Not to exclude anyone, but to center the people and aesthetics luxury had long ignored." He made the Louis Vuitton man feel young, global, flawed, bold, human, more than fashion. Virgil didn't just design from the top down. He reached back. He opened doors for other young black and brown creatives. He launched scholarships. He mentored artists. He hired diversely, not as a trend, but as a responsibility. He didn't just want to be in the room. He wanted to change the room. To final lines, quiet.
It was only thing. To start as a job, it was just a job. To him, it was a chance to redesign the future, one stitch at a time.
You knew Virgil Abloh as a designer. You might have known him for Off-White, or for Louis Vuitton, or for that red zip tie dangling from your Grail sneakers, but that was just one part of him. Virgil wasn't a designer in the traditional sense. He was a polymath, a cultural remixer, a man who saw the world not in disciplines, but in mediums. Under the name Flat White, Virgil DJ'd across the globe, not as a celebrity gimmick, as a legit selector. His sets weren't about flexing fame, they were about curating sound. He mixed hip-hop with techno, house with soul, Kanye with K-Tronada. He spun for packed clubs in Berlin, headline stages at Coachella, dropped sets on Apple Music, SoundCloud, and underground radio. To Virgil, DJing wasn't a side hobby. It was another way to design emotion. Just like fashion, it was about rhythm, flow, aesthetic, vibe. He once said, "My music taste is the same as my design taste, disruptive but always rooted in the culture." Virgil exhibited at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago in 2019, a solo exhibition. Title, Figures of Speech. The exhibit wasn't just about clothes. It was about language, symbols, culture, power. He displayed screens printed with, "You're obviously in the wrong place." He showed industrial shelving as sculpture. He installed a giant clock that told no time, just made you stare. Virgil didn't just want to design things. He wanted to challenge why those things mattered. He blurred the line between commerce and conceptual art, between product and provocation. In 2021, he was invited to Gagosian, one of the world's top art galleries, a sign that the art world was finally catching up to what Virgil already knew, that streetwear could be sculpture, and sneakers could be statements.
IKEA designing furniture for the post-Instagram generation, Evian bottling water with clean Helvetica labels, Moet making champagne bottles, Pioneer DJ customizing equipment used by the very culture he loved, Mercedes-Benz reimagining the car interior as an art piece.
Anything could be a canvas. Toaster, t-shirt, trunk, track spike, everything was fair game. Design as democracy. Virgil believed that design should be accessible, not locked behind French ateliers or $10,000 price tags. He launched Free Game, an online resource to help young black designers build their own brands. He mentored dozens, donated thousands, opened doors that had been shut tight for generations. He once said, "I'm not interested in just being the first. I'm interested in making sure I'm not the last." This wasn't ego. This was ethics, because he knew what it meant to feel like an outsider. And he vowed to never let the next generation feel that way again. He didn't just design products. He designed a path. For DJs, for skaters, for artists, for dreamers, for anyone who thought they couldn't. By 2019, Virgil Abloh had seemingly done the impossible. He had built an empire. He had redefined fashion. He had blurred every line between streetwear and couture, between the gallery and the sidewalk. between what was expected and what was never supposed to be possible. But behind the scenes, something else was happening, something almost no one knew. In 2019, at just 38 years old, Virgil Abloh was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of cancer, cardiac angiosarcoma, a disease that attacks the heart. The prognosis? Grim. The treatment? Relentless. The world? Unaware. In a time where even the most minor update is broadcast to millions, Virgil kept his fight completely private. Not out of fear, not for attention, but because he had work to do. Over the next 2 years, while undergoing countless treatments, hospital visits, and unimaginable fatigue, Virgil did not slow down. He designed, he mentored, he curated, he built. Between 2019 and 2021, he released 4 full off-white runway collections, 2 major Louis Vuitton menswear shows, dozens of Nike collabs, the Figures of Speech Museum exhibition, a Mercedes-Benz design concept, the Louis Vuitton X NBA collection, a scholarship fund for Black fashion students, Free Game, his public mentorship platform, countless DJ sets, lectures, interviews, and community events. Most of this he did while battling a terminal illness, while fighting for his life. And still, he never made it about himself. He once said, "I don't believe in heroes, I believe in systems. I'm just here to help build one." Even as his body weakened, his ideas only got stronger. On November 28, 2021, Virgil Abloh passed away. He was 41 years old. The world stopped. Not just the fashion world, but music, art, culture, youth. Social media flooded with tributes. Designers, athletes, musicians, fans, people who had never met him but felt like they had. They all echoed the same truth. Virgil didn't just design clothes. He designed a new reality, one where the outsider gets in, one where a black kid from the Midwest can define European luxury, one where barriers don't just fall, they get remixed into bridges. Everything I do is for the 17-year-old version of myself. His voice wasn't loud, but his presence was seismic. Virgil Abloh didn't want statues built of him. He wanted tools built for others. He wanted the next Virgil to dream without asking permission, to create without apology. Virgil Abloh is gone, but his ideas, they're everywhere. In every zip tie, every quotation mark, every young artist who now knows it's possible. Because Virgil didn't just break the system. He redesigned it from the inside out. Long live the pioneer. Virgil didn't just design clothing. He designed a new model for creative freedom, where black creativity could be luxury, where streetwear could sit beside couture, where a kid from Rockford could rewrite the rules of fashion. Virgil Abloh didn't just disrupt fashion. He gave it a new language. And whether you wear off-white or not, you've felt his impact. Because he made sure you couldn't ignore it.